Hello everybody and welcome back to another Borderlands 3 theory crafting guide build thing. And today we're going to be taking a look at Amara, which if you can guess by the title is going to have an electric theme and is going to focus mostly on elements and the rush tree itself. Now the way that this build is going to end up playing is, well, as with all my other builds, it's a very fast-paced style, hence the rush stacks, and is also going to focus entirely on using elemental weapons, specifically Maliwan for their higher elemental effect chance. And we'll go more into that as we get through the build. So, if you've been enjoying these builds, do me a favor, hit the like button, and I hope you all enjoy this one. So like I said, this build is going to pretty much revolve around rush. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to grab phase cast, although we're actually going to end up replacing that anyway. But anyway, phase cast, and we're going to have the shock element on our action skill, and this is very important for later on. So first thing we're going to go ahead and do here is put 5 points into do harm. This is literally the very first skill you need to grab because, well, rush is what the build is, and if you don't have rush, then obviously you can't get anything. Anyway, grab this skill, and that's going to basically make it so anytime you kill an enemy, you will gain a stack of rush. Rush is a thing that increases your damage as well as various other effects as we spec into it, but basically will increase your action skill damage by 4.5% per stack, and the duration is 20 seconds. So as long as you're getting a kill every 20 seconds, you get to keep your stacks. Now here's the thing, if you use your action skill, all of your stacks are consumed and put into the actual action skill itself. So if we throw this down, we're only going to be doing an extra 45% damage at maximum rush stacks, but that doesn't sound that great, but we'll eventually, once we get down to its capstone, we'll get a lot better. So the first 5 points are going to end up going into that. Next up, we're going to put 5 points into Violent Tapestry, and what this is going to do is make it so applying a status effect grants Amara a stack of rush. Activating it will again consume all the stacks. For every stack that is consumed, the status effect chance will go up a tiny bit. So at max stacks, you're looking at 30% extra elemental effect chance, which is going to help you get your stacks back up. So every time that you're putting an elemental effect on an enemy, you will gain a stack, and if you kill them, you also get a stack. So both of these skills are going to basically be your bread and butter as far as getting your stacks back up to the maximum, so that way when you launch off your action skill, you get the, the nice increase there. And you're going to be using your action skill pretty much on cooldown. So to help with that, we're going to go ahead and put 5 points into Restless. This is going to give us 25% extra cooldown rate on our action skill. Now we're going to go ahead and get Soul Tap, which is going to make it so that way 30% of the damage that we deal with our action skill will be added to our health. And then we're also going to spec into Ascendant, which is going to turn that 30% into 50%. So 50% of the damage that you deal goes right back to your health, which, considering how this is going to scale, is pretty much just going to give you a full heal every 28, 25%. Listen, math has never been my greatest strong suit, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to ignore that and spec into Deliverance, which is a very important skill. So when you send forth your astral projection, instead of it just damaging everything in its path, it will now also, when it damages an enemy or an object, it releases homing elemental projectiles that trigger her action skill elemental effect on the enemies. So we're going to launch this out. It's going to hit an enemy, and it's going to launch 3 projectiles per enemy hit, and those projectiles are going to hit other enemies, which are going to apply multiple stacks of dots, which are going to get your Violent Tapestry back up, and is just going to do a significant amount of damage. Now, you do lose a tiny bit of damage. You're going from a 92 base to an 86 base, but honestly, the extra projectiles that you shoot out from this are amazing. So this is going to pretty much just allow you to ricochet your elemental effect all over onto other enemies. Now, we're also going to go ahead and spec into a couple of other things here. First up is going to be Wrath. Whenever you use your action skill, you get 20% extra gun damage, and in addition to that, you'll just get a flat 20% to go with it, so that's really nice. We're not going to bother taking Laid Bare because while it is nice, you can spec into it. It can give you 25% extra damage increase from all sources. It's honestly not really worth it unless you're fighting bosses. Now, if you're going for a raid boss build, then yeah, we're going to want to go into Laid Bare, but we really don't know how well the end game's going to work yet, so I don't want to really pick this up in the build, but it's definitely something to think about later on, especially if you're in like a multiplayer group and you want to debuff enemies. Next thing we're going to go ahead and spec into is From Rest, which gives you increased fire rate and better charge time. Now what charge time does is, like I said, we're going to be using Malawan weapons mostly, and a lot of them have charge effects on the actual guns itself, so this will allow you to charge the gun significantly faster. Next up, we're going to go ahead and go into Remnant, and this is going to add to the Ricochet build that we've had going for us. When Amara kills an enemy with a gun or her action skill, she creates a homing projectile that seeks out a new enemy, dealing her action skill elemental damage. Now this is something to differentiate here. The projectiles from Deliverance are going to add dots. The projectile from this is just going to do your straight up elemental damage. So whatever the impact of this ability did, this one's also going to do. In addition to that, any overkill damage is added to the projectile's effect. So if you remember Krieg's Bloodsplosion, you're going to be able to kill one enemy with a large amount of damage. That projectile is then going to fly over to the next enemy, kill that one, and we're just going to be chaining our kills, chaining our action skills all over the place, and just constantly keep our rush stacks at maximum. And to help with that, we're also going to go ahead and put a point in Avatar. This makes it so that way you can use your action skill while it's cooling down once per cooldown. Now the reason this is important is that it's going to let you use Rush basically every 11 seconds or so. So you're going to be able to pretty much spam your action skill all over the room. And in addition to that, if you kill an enemy with your action skill, it will refund half of her rush stacks, and will also increase the rush stack maximum to 20 stacks instead of 10 stacks. So you're pretty much going to be able to double the bonus here. Now you don't have to really worry too much about getting your stacks back. That's just kind of a nice bonus to get. But the fact that you're going to be able to spam it twice, which means you're going to be able to do twice as much Deliverance, which is going to give you even more violent tapestry, you're not really going to have to worry about stacks. So that's really nice. Now, in addition, we're also going to put 3 points into Awakening. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase the effectiveness of rush stacks by 30%. So instead of the 90% at maximum, we're going to have like carry the 110% action skill. Listen, math, me, not great. This is where Bronx makes fun of me because I'm bad at math. But anyway, 30% extra effectiveness on the actual stack is going to be very nice here. Now we've got 19 skill points to use here, and where are we going to throw it? We're going to throw it into Fist of the Elements, and this is going to solidify our build here, and you'll see here why in just a second. First up, we're going to go ahead and spec into Anima, and what that's going to do is Amara's status effect deals increased damage over time and have increased duration. Her action skill status effect deals further increased damage. So this is going to massively increase the duration of the dots that Deliverance applies, as well as significantly increasing the damage that they deal, which means they die faster, and then once they die, they send out projectiles because they then would have died to an action skill. And again, we're just going to be ping-ponging these actions all over the place. Next up, we're going to go ahead and go into Tempest. This is a huge damage boost to the skill build here. And when you're looking to, a lot of people ask, like, what order do you want to put the skills in? I honestly don't know the most ideal method for actually putting these skills in. This is more of a late game, your level 50 kind of build. But this is going to be a huge amount of damage because it's going to give you 30% elemental damage flat, as well as 20% extra damage. Now, I don't know if these are going to be multiplicative with each other, like it's 20% times the 30% and things like that. If it is, it's even going to be even more ridiculous, but even just a flat 50 is going to be gigantic. So all of the elemental damage that we deal with our action skill just got a 50% damage boost, in addition to the status effect that just got increased. So that's all ridiculous. Now we've got a couple more points here. We're going to go ahead and put 5 points here into Wildfire. Whenever you apply a status effect, there is a chance you could spread it to a nearby enemy. 40%. So we've got Deliverance, again, launching out 3 orbs, guaranteeing an elemental effect chance. Then Tapestry gives us more stacks, and then it could spread giving us even more stacks. So you're really not gonna, once you get this far into the build, you're really not gonna have any trouble just keeping your stacks at maximum the entire time. Next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is add even more ricochet to this absolute insanity of ricocheting elemental effects. Amara's bullets that damage enemies have a chance to ricochet and deal decreased damage to other nearby enemies. Ricochet chance and damage are increased if they are under the effect of phase grasp or stillness of mind. We're not really going to worry about that because we're not going to have those skills. So 30% chance that when you shoot an enemy, it will then ricochet to another enemy, and if you're using an elemental effect, then it will ricochet the elemental bullet, which could give you more stacks. You get where this is going. You're going to have a ridiculous amount of stacks at all times. And then finally, we're just going to put our last point into Deep Well, which is going to increase our magazine size by 20%, or actually, I don't know if it's 20% or just a flat plus 20. On the calculator here, it just says plus 20, which I'm trying to think of just like, if that's just plus 20 on anything, that can't be right. What if I have an elemental launcher? I don't exactly know how this skill is going to work. We're just going to put our last point here regardless. Like, there's really nowhere else to put our last little skill point here, so that's where it's going to go regardless. So I am kind of curious if that's going to give us a ridiculous rocket launcher. But anyway, that is pretty much the build. Again, class mods could change up how we look at this build. The best class mod that we could possibly get is probably going to be something that buffs Tempest. I know I gave a lot of shit to Shock Gauge, and here I am making Shock Amara, but there's a little bit of a difference in that at its peak, Shock Gauge did basically the same amount of damage as Fire on Flesh, whereas this, at its peak, even if let's say it's a +5, is going to be able to do more damage than, you know, using the correct element against the correct thing. You're pretty much just going to be able to use Shock for every single thing on the field here. And you're going to strip shields instantly. You're going to ignore the downsides of armor. You're going to be able to just go right through flesh. Pretty much the only thing you're going to have to worry about is shock immune enemies, which, you know, you've got a fire weapon for those usually. Or I guess if they're like ion loaders, then you can just have a corrosive gun in your back pocket. And plus all the Malawan guns have dual elements, so you can have a shock fire and then you can have a shock corrosive to pretty much deal with anything that might be resistant or immune to shock. So that's the entire build. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this build, do me a favor, leave a like and let me know what kind of build you would like to see next. I'm actually hoping that, if you saw the previous video, I'm actually at Gearbox right now, so I will hopefully be able to actually get gameplay of these builds, and we can actually show off what these are going to look like in actual play, so that should be pretty exciting. Again, I'm going to try and avoid any and all story spoilers for videos, so you don't have to worry too much about that. I'm going to be mostly focusing on gameplay leading up to its launch, and then once we get into the actual launch, there will be story spoilers. So anyway, that is the build. Hope you enjoyed this one. I actually really like this, and it's going to make Amara very interesting at high level. It's a little slow to start, but once you get all the skills and start getting into Tempest with all the ricochet, you basically just become unstoppable, with the fact that you're going to be life leeching every 11 seconds, so you're never really going to have to worry about dying. So that's the build. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did, and I'll see you all in the next video, everybody. Bye-bye.